Hey,
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 Yeah.
again.
hello.
Hey,
Hey.
hey, good evening, everybody.
Good evening, Chris.
Good evening.
Thanks for coming by, guys. Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah.
Thanks for stopping by, all of you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to our Sunday night offering of Astronomy Outreach, the Sunday Night Astronomy Show.
Yeah.
Hey.
Happy Canada Day to everybody. Happy Canada Day weekend to everybody. Tomorrow's, I guess, is Canada Day. My name is Chris Curran. I'm the creator of the social media channels known as Astronomy by the Bay. I'm also an amateur astronomer and a member of the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada. I'd like to welcome back my two regular co-hosts this evening, Mr. Paul Owen from the Moonshot Observatory in beautiful Hampton. Hey, Paul.
Good
Evening.
evening.
And Mr. Mike Powell from the PFO Observatory here in St. John. Mike.
Evening.
Hey. And we'd like to welcome all of you that are joining us from YouTube and Facebook land and all of you that are joining us through the local Rogers TV network. Thank you very much for your support. Okay, so on tonight's episode of the Sunday Night Astronomy Show, today is Asteroid Day, an annual global event which is held on June 30th, the anniversary of the Tunguska event in 1908, when a meteor airburst leveled about 2,000 square kilometers of forest in Siberia, Russia. Now, the event aims to raise awareness about asteroids and what can be done to protect the Earth, its families, communities, and future generations from a catastrophic event. On tonight's program, we're going to be taking a deeper look at the Tunguska event with our veteran local astronomer, Kurt Nason. Welcome back to the show, Kurt.
This evening here as well.
Also tonight, Mike will have another vinyl bud target. Mike,
Yeah.
sure will. Paul's going to have another interesting Rosanna's Fun Fact episode for us. No episode, no Rosanna's Fun Fact tonight.
No, Rosanna's off this weekend, and she said, hang on till next week, and we'll get that answer from last week.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we were waiting for part two.
That's right.
Oh, well, that's not good.
Oh, it's great.
Okay. Well, we gotta wait. Yeah, we gotta wait a little longer. All
Maybe
right.
fill it in with a song and dance routine or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Paul did something. Okay.
Hello, my baby. Hello.
I'll provide you with a little quick look at the week ahead along with your photo submissions. So let's get started then with the discussion around Asteroid Day and that most famous asteroid of Tunguska. And first of all, I'd like to say a special thank you to the person out there who sent me this beautiful gift of my mug.
It was Annie.
Oh, hang on. There it is. There it is. It says
There it
this totality rocks.
We have our favorite mugs now.
Yeah. So thank you once again for this. It's wonderful.
It was.
Little surprise. Okay. Mr. Nason,
Yes.
I'd like to go ahead, sir. And take all the time you need because they don't have a Rosanna's Fun Fact now. So
I'll talk real
rather see
slow.
that rather than Paul doing a sing and dance routine. So
Well, but you know what? We talked about this. Kurt's going to bring this up about this dinosaur event that happened with the
oh, yeah. Okay. Let's wait for that.
Is that got to do with a flat Earth?
Nope.
Okay.
All right, happy Asteroid Day. Now, discuss what happened and why they picked today for Asteroid Day. So, Asteroid Day was started in 2016 by the United Nations. Right now, this event happened in 1908, and people had no idea what it was, but for some reason, a lot of scientists, astronomers in particular, did not get around the fact that things can still hit the Earth. I think they thought that was the Earth and the moon being bombarded was way, way in the past. It wasn't until about 1958 they started getting some hints of something happening in around the Gulf of Mexico from core samples there. Then in the 60s, they realized that something had happened at the KPGE boundary, the whatever it is, 66 million years ago, 65 million years they thought back then, but they changed it to 66. And they thought maybe maybe the Earth got smucked by a big asteroid that led to, maybe in conjunction with some big volcanic events going on at the time, led to the demise of the dinosaurs. And so they were working on that. A lot of people were thinking, no, it was all volcanic. Some were thinking, no, it's from an impact from an asteroid. And as they get more and more time through the 70s and 80s, and they're getting pretty sure it was that, but they couldn't find the crater. Right? It was in the early 90s that they localized that crater. They found it in Chicxulub part of Mexico, right on the coast of the Gulf of Mexico. So half the crater is on land, and about half of it is in the sea. It's a couple hundred kilometers wide. That it happened about 66 million years ago. All right, so starting to think this can happen. By the way, one of the leading people that found that crater, or identified it, was Alan Hildebrand from Fredericton. He's at the University of Calgary now, and he's a RASC member. And so right around that time as well, Shoemaker-Levy comet hit Jupiter, and it was caught on a probe out there, and within hours people could see the damage to the atmosphere of Jupiter. Some big black holes were formed on that. Black markings, not black holes. Right, so there's a dozen or more that were visible through even a small telescope. So people really got to know that, hey, this stuff is still going on. We could be smucked by an asteroid at any time. We probably wouldn't know it. So there in the early 90s, they started doing these programs looking specifically for near-Earth asteroids that could cause damage. And those a lot of the comets we see now are named from these programs, because while they're looking for asteroids, they're also finding comets. And comets can do quite a bit of damage as well. They're not as massive, but they're coming at a greater speed. Right, so be a lot more, if you get more velocity, there's going to be a lot more energy in there. And so that's just a little background to it. And then we had in 2013, Chelyabinsk, where a small asteroid came in, blew up over Chelyabinsk part of Russia, and nobody was killed from it, but there were a lot of people injured. And that was another incentive. So it was a few years later that the United Nations declared June 8th or June 30th to be International Asteroid Day. So here's Tunguska. Here's Siberia. Up in here, we got Lake Baikal here, which is the largest lake in the world in terms of volume. And up in here, this is the taiga, which is the sort of the northern forest. Right, you've got mainly a lot of trees up in that area, mainly pine, spruce, things like that. It's all coniferous pretty much. So that's the sort of dark area, the cold forested area up in here. So there'd be a lot of swamps up in here. Be people, some Russians were living up in this area back then. There'd also be indigenous people from the Tungus tribe. And there'd be one of the main jobs up there, or employment, was reindeer herding. Right, so reindeer could probably be sold for meat, things like that, and a lot of them are probably wearing reindeer clothing, things like that. So on that day, things are going on. It's very early in the morning. Here we have June 30th, and we're just after the summer solstice. So it'll be very, very light out there. Tunguska is about 60 degrees north latitude. So they're just underneath not too far from the Arctic Circle. So they got several hours, very few hours of day of night that would never get beyond into astronomical twilight. Right? So there's never, you'd have maybe 2 or 3 hours of night at this time, if that much. And so 7:15 roughly in the morning, you see some different times, 7:13, 7:17. I don't know if you're even on time zone at that time in that area. And if you're living there at that time, it would have been June 17th, because this is the last area that went from the Julian calendar to the other calendar that we do use, around 1920. They went to the Gregorian calendar. Right, a little bit of background there. So that's where it is. So right around that time in the morning, this fireball was seen descended slowly toward the horizon, come out of the east-southeast. Right? And this tongue of flame seemed to cut the sky in two. And it would have been something we'd really, I always wanted to see a daylight meteor. Maybe not something like this, or at least not very close to it. So that tongue of flame said, cut the sky in two. The flame followed by loud bangs. Tremors shook the ground and broke windows. Hot wind of hurricane force came. By the way, these pictures here are drawings or paintings by William K. Hartman, who is a famous planetary scientist. And he's one of the ones with Eugene Shoemaker back in the early 60s. They were applying maps to globes, maps of the moon, putting them around the globe. And they're the ones that were finally broke through to people that most of these craters on the moon were impact craters and not volcanic. So he's one of the leading people on that. There was an explosion. It was heard for over 800-kilometer radius. The seismic event was recorded around 900 kilometers south, just shortly after that. Now, I read there was roughly equivalent to 5 on the Richter scale. Atmospheric concussion recorded all over Siberia. So big blast of atmosphere. Concussion. Microbarographs in England recorded pressure wave 5 hours and 15 minutes later. And the next day, as well, as that pressure wave went all the way around the world, and came back again. It's quite a boom. Also at night, for the next 3 nights in northern Asia and throughout Europe, they had these white nights. And it's very, very bright at night. And we know those are noctilucent clouds. It was only around the 1880s, 1890s that they started to notice these noctilucent clouds. You see them around the summer solstice, and you have to be pretty far north to see these. So if you get dust or water vapor when it's warmer now, and particularly in the north, when you get the sun on there for most of the day, the atmosphere warms up and expands, so you get water vapor coming up high in the atmosphere, up to about 80 kilometers. And it freezes up there. It freezes on the little particles of dust. And a lot of the dust that's up there are from micrometeorites that come in, just the dust coming in like that, and they sort of stay in that level up around that altitude. And so the water vapor will condense onto that and make clouds. And these clouds pick up the sunlight that is down below the horizon. So there's night light, noctilucent clouds. Right? So they're seeing these more and more now as maybe it's global warming, so you get the more of the heat up there. Plus, there's more stuff being put up in the atmosphere. And we had our maybe one and only one in New Brunswick in June 12th, 2019. I was lucky enough to pick that out, and somebody else was lucky enough to be out and see that. And that's who took this picture. This is done by Trudy Allman. Hi, Trudy. And she'll probably join in a little bit later. So she's got that picture. There's the noctilucent clouds that we saw in New Brunswick. So they had these for about 3 nights over Europe and Northern Asia, and they were very, very bright, probably covered a good part of the sky. Then you get these brilliant red sunrises and sunsets from the material that's in the atmosphere, right? Stopping all the blue light from the sunlight and just lighting through the red. That happened, and people knew about it. In fact, turn on my light here. A couple of days later in a newspaper, this is July 2nd, in one of the newspapers in the Russia area, writing on the morning of the 17th of June, again, it would have been the 30th under the Gregorian calendar, around 9 o'clock, we observed an unusual natural occurrence. In North Karolinsky village, the peasants saw to the northwest, rather high above the horizon, some strangely bright and impossible to look at bluish-white heavenly body, which for 10 minutes moved downwards. That might be a little exaggerated. The body appeared as a pipe or a cylinder. The sky was cloudless. Only a small dark cloud was observed in the general direction of the bright body. It was hot and dry. As the body neared the ground or the forest, the bright body seemed to smudge. Then it turned into a giant billow of black smoke, and a loud knocking, not thunder, was heard as if large stones were falling, or artillery was being fired. All buildings shook. At the same time, the cloud began emitting flames of uncertain shapes. All villagers were stricken with panic and took to the streets. The women cried, thinking it was the end of the world. Meanwhile, the person who sent this report in to him, he was a little bit north there. He was out of the village. And he heard these some kind of artillery barrage from that. They repeated at intervals of 15 minutes, at least 10 times. In Tunguska, a few buildings and the walls facing northeast, the window glass shook. So these were reasonably far away. Another one on the paper on July 13th, which again would have been, and that might be the right date. In the village on the 17th, which would be the 30th, an unusual atmospheric event was observed. At 7:43, the noise akin to a strong wind was heard. Immediately afterward, a horrific thump sounded, followed by an earthquake that literally shook the buildings, as if they were hit by a large log or heavy rock. The first thump was followed by a second, and then a third. Then the interval between the first and third thumps was accompanied by an unusual underground rattle, similar to a railway upon which dozens of trains are traveling at the same time. Afterward, for 5 to 6 minutes, an exact likeness of the artillery fire was heard, 50 to 60 salvos in short, equal intervals, got progressively weaker. After a couple of minutes after one of the barrages, 6 more thumps were heard, like cannon firing, but individual, loud, and accompanied by tremors. The sky at the first sight appeared to be clear. There was no wind and no clouds. On closer inspection to the north, where most of the thumps were heard, kind of an ashen cloud was seen near the horizon, which kept getting smaller and more transparent. And by around 2 to 3 p.m., it completely disappeared. It was just a couple that were in the newspaper at that time. So the word was out on it that something had happened. But in that area, it's very desolate. And you want to send people up there, it's going to take a while. You'd have to take a train for a while, then do some other things. Speaking of trains, I'd read a report where about 1,000 kilometers south of that, a train was traveling and it started shaking. All the cars were shaking on it. And the engineer would see the rails moving. And so he'd stop the train. He couldn't explain to anybody what was happening. Everybody was scared. So we just slowly moved into the next station to check all the trains out, the cars out, see that everything was okay. So this is quite a big bang. So a very secluded area, hard to get to, but I also remember what's happening on in this area right around that time. There's a lot of upheaval in Russia at the time. Then you got World War One from 1914 to 1918, then the Russian Revolution after that around 1920. So there's a lot of upheaval in that area. And it wasn't until 1921 that the Soviet Academy of Sciences sent this guy, Leonid Kulik. Now, if you got born with the name, you give it the name Leonid, you were born to do something with meteors. Right? So he's a committee on meteorites. So they sent him to investigate up there. So he was thinking, okay, if this was a meteorite, it could be an iron meteorite, there could be a huge crater there with lots of iron in there, and iron's not that easy to get to, and there'd be a wealth of iron metal maybe in that meteorite. So they financed a trip for him to go up, and there's some others as well. So they went up there. He didn't go actually right to the site, but they went up to a training as far as a trading post to the south of that. So he interviewed people, witnesses, actual witnesses to the event, those that were still alive, up to 600 kilometers from the site as he's moving along, moving up. There's a trading post down in here. Up in here, you see pretty much what ground zero is. We'll see what happened there. So in 1921, that's what he did. He just interviewed people. He probably got as far as that. And he got some stories from everybody, and that really convinced him that, yes, this was some sort of meteorite or meteoroid exploding in the atmosphere, and it probably must be a crater up here somewhere. We just need to come up and find it. Getting there is not going to be easy. All right, so they wait 6 years, February 1927, the first expedition. And they get up there. In that area, they find down trees pointing southeast as they're moving in. So they may be coming in this way. You see down trees in here, all pointing in the southeast. Now that came in from the east-southeast, right? Now in late May, they find swampy basin and trees down in around here. And all the trees in here were down in a radial pattern. So on this side, all the trees are pointing this way, pointing this way, pointing this way, all pointing away from the center, mark in the center here. Right, so it looked like there might have been, maybe this is where the meteorite landed in here, and the pressure from that or from the explosion, from the air, things like that, just tore everything down in a radial pattern like that. And so they figured there must be a crater in here somewhere. Here's some pictures that got taken. Here's the radial pattern on one side here. All the trees are down like that. And the ones in underneath where they think the main part of the blast was, they were standing upright, but all the leaves are taken off. So if you think there's a big explosion in the atmosphere overhead, coming straight down like that, and ripping all the limbs off the trees, and then blowing out to the outside and taking all the trees down in a circle like that. And all about 80 million trees were down and covered flattened about 2,100 square kilometers, roughly 800 square miles of the forest. All right, the second expedition went up April 1928. And this area, there's a lot of swamps up in there. Now it gets cold in the wintertime, be a lot of ice, and then that starts to melt. So they want to get up there before the ice melts. And all you got is bog up there. It'd be hard, heavy footing going through there. So they went up. They did some magnetic surveys looking for the iron. You can see areas there. They dug up some areas that looked like there might be a little crater there. Looking for a meteorite, they couldn't find anything. And eventually, due to the weather and winter coming on, they had to leave and come back. Next year in April, they went up for the third expedition. Again, several digs looking in areas that could be heavy, it could be a crater. No luck, they found nothing. Now, one of the hazards up, this is an area where there'd be a lot of bears, a lot of wolves. So they had some guides to take them up there, some hunters. And one of the big things that gives me the shivers, you make it out of the picture of the guy's leg here and his foot. See all these things on here? Either big mosquitoes or big flies that like to bite. And this would have been everywhere. If you look at the picture here of Kulak back here, got that netting over his head. And it's pretty bad. Let me go back to this map here. There's the sort of the ground zero of it on here. And up in here, they've got some areas where they would talk to people who were in these areas and what they found. Now, let's see. You can read the small print in here. This one up in here. A herdsman in there. This guy was knocked out for 2 days. And when he came to, his herd of reindeer were killed. And his house was burned. This one in here. And this one, a nomad camp with about 700 reindeer were burned, as were the dogs, all stores, all the teepees. Luckily, the guy had this one. He's away looking at another one of his herds. You can see this everywhere. There's a lot of places where the teepees, all the teepees got blown away. One person down in here, an older person died of shock from the explosion. There's another one. I'll read that one this time. Really good story. And he was in this area. Right, at breakfast time, I was sitting by the house at Vanavera trading post. Okay, this is at the trading post, about 65 kilometers south. So I suddenly saw directly to the north over Tunguska Road, the sky split in two and fire appeared high and wide over the forest. And that was about 50 degrees up. The split in the sky grew larger, and the entire northern side was covered with fire. At that moment, I became so hot that I couldn't bear it, as if my shirt was on fire. From the northern side, where the fire was, came a strong heat. I wanted to tear off my shirt and throw it down. Then the sky shut closed, and a thump sounded, a strong thump. And I was thrown a few meters. I lost my senses for a moment, but then my wife ran out and led me to the house. After that, such noise came as if rocks were falling or cannons were firing. The earth shook, and when I was on the ground, I pressed my head down, fearing rocks would smash it. When the sky opened up, hot wind raced between the houses, like from cannons, which left traces in the ground like pathways, and it damaged some crops. Later, we saw that many windows were shattered, and in the barn, part of an iron lock snapped. And another one down in here, an older man was in his bed, sleeping, and the explosion threw him through the air for about 12 meters, and he hit a tree, broke his arm, so the bone was exposed, and later on he had died. So I think in total about 3 people had died from that, but probably several, maybe a couple thousand reindeer or more, and who knows what other stuff up there would have been killed. Okay, April 29, the fall of 1930, several digs. Again, no luck. So his last trip was in 1938. He went into the South Swamp. Again, no luck. They dig down into some holes that looked like they could have been craters. Be nothing there. I think in one spot they thought something was noticed in there. It turned out to be a tree stump. Right. And they were verified that this was the right area they were looking in because aerial photos had been taken. They had arranged for that and showed that where they were was the correct spot. But no crater, no meteorite. Right, so samples were taken of the ground and from trees and things like that later on, or during these expeditions. All right, so later on, years later, so Kulik's teams found no crater, no meteorite. 1957, analysis of the samples taken in 1929 soil samples, meteoritic dust spheres show up in some of the samples. Magnetite forms on the outside of a blading meteorite. So this is what they were seeing. So as that meteoroid is coming through the atmosphere, ablating, getting very hot, so the outside is melting, right? That can form this magnetite. And some of that, when the thing explodes, it gets thrown down to the ground and up into the atmosphere. These were also found in some of the tree samples taken in the 1990s. They also found glassy silicates in the area. So they knew something blew up, and since it was no crater and really no meteorites found on the ground, it had to be just an air explosion. In 1930, a famous astronomer, more famous later on, he's the one that gave comets the name of dirty snowballs, Fred Whipple. He suggested this a comet had vaporized in the atmosphere, and that's supported by the noctilucent clouds, because comets have a great amount of water in them as well. So I would put a lot of water vapor up into the air to give those clouds. And it was thought later on there's possibly a fragment of comet 2P Encke. Right? So it's the comet from which the beta torids occur, the meteor shower. And this is a daylight meteor shower. It's at its peak in the morning, very early in the morning. And it's at its peak as well, right around the end of June. It runs from mid-June to mid-August. So it would have been at its peak there. So they suspect, well, maybe if it was a comet, maybe it came, or part of a comet, it's maybe a piece that came off Comet Encke. Maybe not recently, it could have been a piece that came off years ago and it's still in that roughly the same area. All right, so there are teams from Russia, there are teams from Italy that were taking samples and doing analysis and on there. And one team was thinking comets. The other team was thinking more of a meteor or a meteoroid, an asteroid coming in. And there's some things that would show, yes, a comet, some things would show, yes, it's an asteroid. Maybe a stony asteroid or maybe a metal asteroid with an iron with nickel. In 2020, there's a Russian model. This is a computer model, not a catwalk one. They went through different scenarios of comets and rocky asteroids, metal asteroids, and what matched their model, matched what actually happened best was something about 200 meters wide, an iron asteroid coming in, glancing off the atmosphere. And so it can then cause that big explosion, maybe lose some of it, but it then continues on through the atmosphere and back on into space. Now, this isn't something that's never happened before, because in 1972, in Wyoming, there were pictures of it, and up into Canada, and a meteoroid came in the atmosphere very bright during the daytime and skipping on the atmosphere and then went back out into space. So this one shows that it might have been an iron metal asteroid. But after Chelyabinsk happened in 2013, something similar, but a much lower and much smaller asteroid. A lot less destruction from that one, but still quite a bit. When they used that model, they took the information from that and sized it up to what they thought happened with Tunguska. They suggest a stony asteroid, 50 to 80 kilometers in diameter, traveling at about 15 kilometers per second and exploding 10 to 14 kilometers high. And so their model suggested this. And a lot of people were thinking somewhere along this anyway, over the last 20 years before that. So a stony meteorites get different sizes. So if you get one that's less than about 10 meters wide, when it comes in through the atmosphere, so it's coming in at very, very fast, and as soon as it hits the atmosphere, it starts to slow down. All right, so we say it gets hot very quickly. Now there's that friction from the air, but what's happening is also where it's slowing down like that, it's losing kinetic energy, and that's being transformed into different energy, heat. Right, so it gets hot enough on the outside that it starts to melt or ablate, and so some of that starts to come off. So at the 10-meter one in its diameter, it's going to lose some of its mass and land. Right? Maybe if it makes a small crater, it's once it starts to actually fall and loses its space at a cosmic velocity, it'll probably drop just down a slow angle and probably at not great speeds either, maybe up to 300 meters per hour or 300 kilometers per hour, roughly, something like that. Right. So you find some meteors there, you probably wouldn't get much for a crater. At 10 to 100 meters wide, when they come in, there's a lot more energy being lost there in the heat, so it's getting very, very hot on the outside, ablating away like that. But inside, it's still cold as space. So you get a pressure differential. It's quite great. Very cold inside, hot outside. That's enough to make that explode. Just that pressure differential there. And in most cases, depending the bigger it is, the more it's going to have to happen, is that it'll be evaporated completely. Right, so you get a big pressure wave from that, like they saw in Tunguska. If you have one that's greater than 100 meters wide, it'll make it all the way through, retaining at least some of its cosmic velocity, and it's going to hit and form a crater. So there's no crater found from this one. They knew something exploded in the atmosphere, so they figured something between 10 and 100 meters wide. Later on, they found iridium. It's found in Tunguska spheres. Iridium, you'll find that in a lot of meteorites. And it's iridium that really helped them locate where the crater had formed or something happened 66 million years ago, because they found layers of iridium. But that could be another story. I've got another presentation on that. Right, and also they found iridium in 1908 ice layers in Antarctica, which suggests that something from space blew up there. Even though it happened in Siberia, that stuff is going to go up in the atmosphere and go all the way around the world. So very likely a stony meteorite. So you see pictures here coming in, heating up very much, exploding here, and just leaving the dust. Some of that dust is going to just go up into the atmosphere, big concussion down here in the ground. So they figure that one is equivalent to about 60 atomic bombs or one large hydrogen bomb. Some less plausible explanations that come up. People were suggesting it was a UFO with nuclear propulsion, steered to a more desolate region to save lives. Thank you, aliens. Some thought it might have been antimatter. Not likely, but that would cause a big boom. Some thought it was a mini black hole. A lot of these probably were formed into the Big Bang, but they're not going to be very stable.
I'll choose number 4.
All right, I think that was a good one. That one just showed up today. You never know what's on this slide. Siberia or Russia, really good for getting things. 12th of February, 1947. The shock wave, it's the Sakhalin fall. I believe Emma, if she's still listening, I think Emma has some meteorites from this one. There's a big shock wave that fell for 150 kilometers. 100 would be a lot. The asteroid broke up, forming a lot of craters, not very big, but a lot of craters, and a lot of meteorites are picked up. The largest crater is about 25 meters wide, 6 meters deep. These were iron. This is an iron asteroid. So the less than half of the estimated 70 tons of that were recovered. So here's the Sea of Japan here, and this is where this one landed. And then February 15th, 2013, Chelyabinsk. Here it is caught on a dash cam. Brighter than the sun, as was Tunguska. So at 9:20, again, another morning one. Bolide brighter than sun. Exploded, they figure 30 kilometers high, or, give or take a kilometer. Shockwave shattered windows. About 1,600 people that were injured from this. Over 1,200 of them are from broken glass. You see, there's a studio here, and see all the broken glass on the floor. Right, so there's a comparison of sizes here. Eiffel Tower, another big building here, Empire State Building. So here's Tunguska, say roughly 65 meters wide, which would be halfway between the 50 and the 80. And this one for Chelyabinsk was actually about 19, so they got 20 meters in here. One of my favorite stories here from Chelyabinsk. Of course, when the light was coming by, kids were in school at that time, and people out in the streets, things like that. And you see the big flash of light coming through. People are going to rush to the window to see things. I remember in grade 3 in Macadam, there's a helicopter came in and landed on the ball field beside the school, and I wouldn't often see a helicopter landing in Macadam. Probably the only time that I can remember, at least as a kid. And so everybody rushed up to the window, and the teacher came down with the strap, slapping people, getting them moving their seats. So in this one, I saw the flash. A lot of people went to the window, but there's one teacher, an older teacher, and she had been used to when they're practicing for bomb drills. Right? They'd have like we used to have fire drills. They'd have bomb drills, and the kids would have to get up and get underneath their desks. Right? So she was from that era. And as soon as she saw that flash of light, she had all the kids under the desk, and nobody in her class got hurt. All right. So the final word. Always carry a sturdy umbrella, particularly if you're in Russia. So there's Tunguska in 2000, or in, say, 1920s. Here it is in the 1990s. Trees growing back up again. Okay. And that's the end of that boom.
Yeah. Wow.
So, did you tell them about the dinosaurs?
I'm going to let you tell you that, Paul. It's your joke.
No, no.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I thought you didn't. I thought you would include it, but that's okay.
All right. Paul thought it was dinosaurs there because he was reading on it. He said it was a mammoth explosion. I mean, just picture this mammoth coming in from space and exploding.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my
That'll show up in Minor Bud next week.
Yeah.
Yeah, we want that mammoth cluster.
Somebody did mention, why does this seem to be a target area? Probably just
Big.
big. It's a big area. Yeah.
Most of them are going to land in the water anyway.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they're just lucky.
Or unlucky.
Well, you see that crater in Quebec. It's
Yeah.
huge. I'd hate to see the asteroid that made that.
Yeah, Manicouagan.
Yeah.
Yeah, once they sent up satellites going around the Earth, they kept finding more and more craters
Yeah.
that they were never thought before. All these circular lakes in northern Canada, these are craters.
Oh, we got pelted.
Yeah,
And like you figure how big was Tunguska? It was 8,000 or 800 square kilometers, give or take.
yeah.
Uh,
No, 800 square miles.
miles.
Yeah.
Here, just quickly, there's that one in Quebec.
Yeah.
Like that is massive. To think that what came out of that. So
Here, I'll share one here is pretty neat too. Look at how close this one got to the visit to the visit,
yeah, to the visitor center, yeah.
Wow.
Almost at the visitor center.
the visitor center. Yeah,
Couldn't get much closer than that. I'm surprised it never got charred.
yeah.
Obviously, they built it afterward anyway.
I don't know.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Kurt.
You're welcome.
Yeah, good way to end off Asteroid Day. Okay, let's go from there to how about a Vinyl Bud next?
Vinyl Bud next. Where are we? Screen number 1, share. Alrighty. Binocular target of the week. This week by Vinyl Bud is Messier 29 or the cooling tower. Bye-bye. So Messier 29 or NGC 6913, also known as the cooling tower, is an open cluster located in the constellation of Paul Cygnus. The Orion arm of the Milky Way galaxy, located in our local group of galaxies. M29 is some 3,700 light years away from the Earth. It is best viewed during early spring with a magnitude of 6.6 and can easily be viewed with a pair of binoculars. So how would I find it in the sky? Well, we all look up and see that beautiful swan every summer, and there's our Cygnus. The center star right here on that cross, Sidar, you just point your binoculars at that and come down just a little bit, and you're going to find it. At 11 o'clock at night, it's at about 80 degrees east-northeast, and look up, and you can't miss Cygnus. It's right there in front of you. Again, a little closer look, if you're using a Telrad, it's less than a full Telrad distance from Sidar down to M29 will put you dead center. What does that look like? Well, it's got a bunch of stars that go in a curve on one side and curve on the other. That's where they get the shape of the cooling tower. So it's you're not going to see this in your telescope, but you will see, a small object that looks like the cooling tower. And 10 by 50 binoculars, yes, it's small. It's right there in the center, but you can make out the two curved lines of stars that cause it to have its name. Compared to the full moon, oh, it might be the size of Mercurisium, maybe. It's still a good size. You'll spot it when you get on it. Sidar is in the same field of view. You just come down and you'll find it right in here. It looks like a little Y, for lack of a better term. Are you guys ready for this one? What does an astronaut call his ex-wife? SpaceX.
Okay, so.
Like,
Binocular target of the week by Vinyl Bud.
Yay.
Yay.
Oh, man.
Mike, I just looked up in the RASC handbook, that Mount Waggon crater is 80 to 90 kilometers wide.
Wow.
yeah.
Formed 215 million years ago.
Glad you weren't around then.
I find it really interesting that the HERA mission, or is that how they say it? HERA mission, HERA, is going up soon, I think. And it's the one that's going to go out and do the analysis of what happened with the DART mission.
Yeah.
The DART mission went out and, of course, impacted the asteroid. What was the name of it?
Didymus?
Huh?
Didymus?
Didymus, I think, yeah. Dimorphos, maybe. Anyway, it impacted it, and it did change its trajectory a small amount.
Yeah.
Maybe enough to make a difference if we have enough time to catch it. But now HERA is going out to analyze that data a little bit closer.
Yeah.
And
Went from an near Earth to a directly hitting Earth asteroid.
yeah. maybe we hit it in the wrong direction.
Did it miss? No, it didn't.
No, it didn't.
All right. Now I'm sure there's another one out there with our name on it somewhere, but I'm not going to worry about it too much. There was one.
Meatball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Meatball, yeah.
I always wondered if Hudson's Bay was an impact crater because it's so perfectly round. Hudson's Bay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You look at that and you go, there's got to be related to that somehow. Something big hit anyway.
There was one that went by yesterday morning, 2020 MK, I guess.
Yeah.
It was 296,000 kilometers out, so half the distance to the moon, I guess. So,
Yeah. There's a near-Earth asteroid discovered in 2005, and they went back through time to see its orbit, and it looked like it made a very close path to Earth about 3 days before Tunguska.
Oh, really?
Great.
But it probably just coincidence.
Mhm. Probably. Well, it's all about Apophis now, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, they've restudied and restudied and restudied that too, and it doesn't look like it's gonna be until like 28 something, if it does hit.
Hopefully by that time we'll
Still
have
800 years away,
it. We're
or
still
8,000
hoping.
years away.
Mm.
800, sorry.
All right, let's go to a few photos then. Share a few photos, yes, I can. I haven't got very many here to go through, so we'll just see what we got. Share my screen. Up there now.
Yeah,
Okay, so this one comes in from Matthew Dupre. Matthew says, "Hey Chris, here's my latest shot M16, the Eagle Nebula. It has about an hour and 15 minutes of total exposure time and was taken with my Celestron 9 1/4 Hyperstar and an ASI 2600. Nicely done, Matthew.
Yeah, very nice.
Well done.
There's the pillars
There.
right in the center.
Yeah.
We're almost on them.
Oh, over here.
Up a little bit.
Oh,
There you go.
there, yeah.
you get any closer?
Yeah, if that was flipped up the other way, that's the way we typically see them.
yeah.
Yeah. Nicely done, Matthew.
Yeah,
Okay.
very nice.
Let's go from there to Robert Cadet. He said, I had cut short in this one. I see 5090, the Pelican Nebula in Cygnus, 30 minutes of 10-second exposures. And then the clouds rolled in. So, yes, that happens.
The clouds.
Yes.
Nice shot, though, Rob.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the old
This one
one.
here of the sun the other day, best 53% of 1300 frames stacked in AS4, final processing in IMPPG and Photoshop. C-Star S50, lots of activity on the solar surface, June 28th at 4:30. And there is lots of activity on the solar surface still. Missed out on one the other day. I guess we had a filament that picked up or that broke off and hit it in our direction. I think it was the 25th. And was supposed to just graze the planet, which it did, but it all of a sudden, right in the afternoon, it saw the BZ number go right crazy, like the -18, and it was a severe geomagnetic storm, G4, almost a G5 in the middle of the afternoon though for us. So, but apparently that later that evening, I didn't realize that there was going to be any activity, and when I looked at it, it said it was going to go right down to G1. But there were I did see some images from Maine that came in that people did have some aurora shots from down in there. So we're keeping a really close eye on what's going on with the sun lately, of course. David Smart, this was a few days ago, taken with my Dwarf 11, not too bad. Hoping to have some clear sky for deep sky soon. So nicely
There you
done.
go.
Yeah, it's clear. Thanks, David.
Moon never gets old.
No, and a couple from Audrey Sonoika here. So some of the awesome beauty of Mother Nature. So here we are. There's a pot of gold right there. There it is.
Yes, 3 years.
It's a double blow.
With my luck, I'll be at this end and it'll be on the other end. So,
Yeah.
and this nice sun shot here as well. Thanks, Audrey.
Wow, Nibiru.
Okay, so a few things that are going on. It's all about the moon and Mars and Jupiter in the morning sky this week. Tomorrow morning at 4:30 a.m. Atlantic time, you'll see the waning crescent moon sitting next to Mars. It's within 4 to 5 degrees, I believe. And then we've got the beautiful Pleiades cluster lower than that, then Jupiter below that again. On Tuesday morning, the moon moves down closer to the Pleiades. Jupiter's still at the lower point, Hyades down here. And then by Wednesday, the moon has moved down to join up with Jupiter. And then on Thursday, we've got the very thin waning crescent moon, very, very thin, with Jupiter the Pleiades and Mars, and nice Capella sitting over here on the side. So some nice morning views. If you're up 4:30, who isn't up 4:30, right?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are.
Gotta pee.
Yeah, gotta be. There's some options for you if you're just bored and you want to go out and have a look up. Always a beautiful sight. So that's right up to Thursday. Friday is our new moon. So Saturday, here's another one. This is day old moon challenge. This one's kind of always a nice one to try for. Sunset is actually at 9:13 on Saturday, and moonset is at 9:59. So you don't have very much time to catch the moon before it sets. And it will be very thin, only about 0.8%, I think, when it passes the meridian. So maybe 1.5%, 2% by the time it sets. Not even that, maybe. Better opportunity might be coming up on Sunday evening. This is Sunday night at 10 p.m. Atlantic time, with a waxing crescent moon and Mercury sitting there just below it. So they're only about 3 degrees apart. They should both fit in the same field of view of binoculars. If you haven't seen Mercury in the evening sky, then there it'll be. And Venus is there too, Kurt, isn't it?
Yeah, I got them both there last Tuesday.
You did. So is it on? So is it more visible here in the shot with the day old moon?
Well, the moon be well past them.
Okay.
Yeah, Venus is still quite low, but it is bright. I just happened to catch it between 2 layers of clouds, and then about 20 minutes later, Mercury dropped down into the clearing as well.
So is it going to spend any time in our evening sky?
Oh yeah, it's just starting.
Just starting to. Okay, awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we'll have it through the summer.
Great. It's a really nice target for sure. Our calendar, June, July. Have you got a July, August one out yet?
Not done yet. I do it on the week before the St. John Club meeting, so it'll be
Right.
this week.
Okay. So in our St. John Club meeting is at 10 o'clock. Can you explain why that is? Or
I will change that. That's because 0 and 9 are side by each on the keyboard,
gotcha.
and somebody proofreading it didn't catch that.
Oh, there you go. Well, moon will be beside Venus, so you'll be able to see something there anyway. So
Yeah.
that's next Saturday. So yeah, the St. John Astronomy Club meets next Saturday at the Rockwood Park Interpretive Center, right next to where the duck pond used to be, I'll say. Maybe the ducks are still there. I don't know. But they're
At
still
7 o'clock,
at 7 o'clock, right?
Atlantic Standard Time.
Atlantic Daylight Time.
Yeah.
Oh, daylight time, sorry.
7:30 in Newfoundland.
Yeah. Here's another chart that I get from Lisa's Lookup Astronomy and More. She's out on Facebook there. She's also on Instagram. Mars, she lists here all the events for the month. This is her July calendar. So here's the dates, and here's the peak times, the best time to see it, and what you need to see it with, either naked eye, binoculars, or a telescope. So you can follow Lisa at Ruby Moonbeams on Instagram, X, formerly Twitter, Mastodon, and Facebook, and now on Threads as well. So great. Thanks, Lisa. Oh, and next week.
Next week.
This is our talk for next week. We're going to be discussing how to protect your gear. So I'll get to that in our closing statements. So if you have
So Mike, just go back one, Chris. Go back.
Okay. Who's who?
Who's who?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll let you figure that out. I've got a Tim Hortons coffee cup beside me.
Oh, okay, that's you. Okay.
Yeah.
Chris is taller.
I thought that might have been me because I'm shorter than everybody. So
I'm further in the distance. That's all. So I look shorter.
We'll leave it to everybody's imagination.
there you go.
Okay. So if you have any photos that you'd like to share, we love getting them. Send them in here to astronomybythebay@gmail.com, and we'd be happy to put them up on our next broadcast. That's what that's all about. Okay. So let me get to my final little part here, if I can. Just bear with me. Here. And I gotta go here, and I gotta go here, here, and I gotta go here. Stop that. There we go. Just take that back. That always comes in real fast. Okay. Anyway, so that's our show for this evening. We hope you enjoyed the program tonight. Special thanks to Kurt for joining us this evening. Thank you, Kurt.
My pleasure.
Always great to have you on. Now, on next Sunday's program, we are going to talk about astronomy equipment as your investment and how we can best protect that investment. So we'll discuss that topic next week. A special thanks was it to Trudy as well for sharing 25, I think she said, shares here tonight.
Yes.
Oh, thank you,
Wow.
Trudy.
And your Noctilucent sky picture, clouds.
Yeah.
And we look Look forward to Rosanna's part 2 next week. Can't wait.
Yes.
And to all of you share the program out there, thank you all. Remember too, we do love getting your photos, so send them in to astronomybythebay@gmail.com. And we'll be happy to share them on our next broadcast. Special thanks to our friends at Rogers again for joining us this evening. So until next week, everybody, wishing you all clear skies. As we like to say, guys, open your eyes to view the skies and keep your scopes. Which way? Point it up.
Never forget.
All right. Good night, everybody. Thanks for.
I wish that was a mammoth.
Good night, Dick.